So guys, we're going to build the Baal Predator. Something that a few of you guys have been looking forward to, hopefully. The way we're going to build this one, if I show you under close, we're going to do it with the Flamestorm cannon. Just because this is the new type of turret weapon for it. So we thought, you know, with this being a new model, we may as well put together the new version of it. And also we thought this could be a version of it that we'll see quite a lot on the table. You know, flamethrowers absolutely everywhere. This is the fire-breathing dragon, as I stated in the unboxing video. So let's move our box out of the way, and let's get started. So, under close, what we have to do, the first few steps is basically making the standard Predator hull. So we have the two segments of our track. We're going to build one under camera, and we have one already pre-built. And then we're just going to go on from there, just like a regular Predator. And then at the end, we're going to start putting our proper Baal stuff together. So let's get started with our first step. Okay guys, so we've done numerous builds on this chassis before, so you can already tell the parts we have. We have the inner and outer hull segments for one side, and we also have all the segments of track that are required for this part. So we'll try and get through this quickly. We'll try and get all the standard build stuff out of the way fairly sharpish, so we can enjoy putting the Baal Predator specific stuff together more. So let's take our glue first, and we'll glue the two sides of our hull together. So just dab there on any of the pointy out bits basically. Take our other half of the hull and line it all up and press it together. Huzzah, like so. Now if we set it on its back, we're now going to add the first segment of track. So we need to glue along all the bottom wheels. And then place our track in place. Now this is the back of the vehicle and this is the front. We want the treads to be pointing towards the back, so you can see the general pattern of the track as long as that's going towards the back. And it also needs to sit relatively level, like on either end. So what I'm basically explaining here is so that these track segments don't go over the front or rear wheel too much, because we have other lengths of track that continue that flow of track around the front and back wheels. Now, we'll work from the back, add a little bit more glue from here, and here. We then need to take a 3-link section of track, and we just need to hook that in to the track and let it sit down into place, like so. Then go around to the front, and we have the same length of track we need to put in the same fashion. So a 3-link piece, line it up with the teeth, and it just sets in like so. Now we have two single-link track links that need to go to either end here as well. So on this piece, we need to add glue here, bring this in and line it up, and that will sit in more or less pointing vertical. As you can see there, it more or less points vertically up from the back wheel. We then have to do the same on the front. Boom and boom. And again, line the part up and slide it in. Now again, that'll more or less just sit vertical with the front of the vehicle. So then we have our two final pieces, which are two double-link track segments. Now we need to glue up the front here, so just glue along these flat pieces, and there's a tiny little lip in here as well. We then just need to take the track and it should just drop into place. I'll just tidy that up for you, like so. Then around the back, and do the same thing. Line the piece of track up, set it into place, and just with our eye, make sure that the track is all interlinked and sitting properly, like so. So with that step complete, we'll now move on to our next step. So our next step along, we're actually going to amalgamate a few more steps just to speed up the process. We have the rear access hatch, we have a bulkhead in the middle, which will be inside the hull. We have a floor panel, sorry. Then we're also going to combine this segment, which is the top of our hull, which also has two headlights which we have to glue on, which the instructions don't necessarily show. Then we have the first of our Baal Predator specific part. So we have this modified front piece which goes on, and we also have a little armoured panel that goes over the top of that. And also, if we're going over the page, here we are. This shows the headlights going on properly here. We've got two hatch covers to go onto the front, and we've got the turret mount that's going onto the top of the hull. And that basically completes the hull, so we'll move on. So here are the first pieces that we need on this sort of fairly intensive step. So what we've got is our rear access panel, our bulkhead, our modified front plate, and the floor armour. Now we also have our two hull sides as well, and we're going to work with one of these sides now to actually glue our floor panel and all our accoutrements onto. So we need to remove our front plate for the time being. That's two ahead of ourselves. Now we need to glue the floor in. So first thing we need to do is glue along the bottom of this line, running the glue right in this line right to the back. We'll then take the panel, the floor, and line it up and set it into place. Much like that. Now, we then need to take this central bulkhead, which we have sitting here, and that is going to have to glue in here. So, well, here. So we just need to run a line of glue down here and along the outer edge of where the floor plating texture finishes. We then have to slide this panel into place or set it into place on this side. Make sure everything lines up. This helps create a proper right angle. So when all that is set, that should be setting perfect. So now with that done, we're going to dry place our rear hatch, because we don't necessarily need to glue this, but if we wanted to, that's fine. So that will sit into the hole at the back, and we can set it up onto the lip that lets it hold its shape there. What I'm then going to do is run glue, if I can move this further into shot a little bit more, run glue along all the flat areas here. So just along here, right up to the front, and also up the bulkhead as well. We then need to take our other segment of hull, line it up with the rear hatch first, so it is in its appropriate hole. Well, when we do it right, it'll line up into its appropriate hole, like so. Haha. So that is now everything in place. If I want to reinforce any of the glue points, I can. I'm going to take some just to this bulkhead and just run some glue down the inside of it, like so. Now the next step we need to do, if I slide this off to the side, we have the top of our hull, and we have a few pieces that we need to glue to it, but the first thing we're going to do is glue this to the top of our open segment hull. Now there's several glue places that we should always bear in mind. So the main glue points are the inside ridges here, because this is where it contacts the hull primarily for the gluing. So we'll run some glue along there, right up to there, and we can follow that line underneath the track guard, staying inside the track guard and not gluing the edges, because that does not contact, and then right to the back as well. And also another glue point for us, some people may miss, is the back corner. So along here, and if my hand would stop shaking, right along this back edge. Like so. Maybe I've had too much coffee again today, guys. We'll then bring the hull in, and this should all neatly sit down. I'll just hold it all for a couple of moments. I don't think there's any parts that have generally warped out of place. No, everything looks rather smooth. And okay, yes, we've got some glue that is now attaching itself to the rear hatch. Now, if you don't want to have the hatch opening, that's fine. If you do want to have it open, be a bit more careful gluing the corners of the rear top hull decking down. But what we've got is nice and tidy. We now need to bring in the two pieces for our modified front panel for the Baal. So we have these. Now we're going to glue our little armoured hatch in first, and that's just simply going to glue in to a little ridge just above the windscreen. So a tiny little bit of glue in there, not too much. And then that will just, our hinged piece will just sit down on top like so. And we'll have some iconography to put on that at the end of the build. Now, we'll now glue it into this big gaping hole. And our glue points are the two ridges to either side here, like so, and along here as well. You can add glue along the horizontal piece at the bottom, but it can turn out quite messy. You might find some glue spilling out over that edge and then making a bit of a mess, and it doesn't look too good. So we'll now slide this panel in. I'll be careful with it. And that seems to have went in very well. Yep, and indeed it has actually. That is a very nice panel line. So that has gone in nice and tidily. Now the next couple of things we want to do is we have a couple of hatch covers, and then we have two headlights. So we'll glue our hatch covers in first. I'll move that all forward a little bit so you can see. Just glue in around here. So the first one I'm going to glue in is probably going to be our driver's periscope, and because we have an armoured vision slot here, I assume this vehicle is right-hand drive. It's been designed by guys in the UK, so you know, right-hand drive vehicles make sense to us. You guys in America, you have no idea, so no offense. We also have our other hatch cover, which will go in here, and that will just sit into place like so, and just keep itself down and out of the way basically. We then have our headlights, and I'm going to take it that the headlights, the actual main light, is going to go to the outside, or no, do you know what, we'll flip them round and we'll do the main headlight towards the inside. Then we have our famous turn signals on the outside where they probably should be. So we need to glue like that, just like a rough sort of N shape, or shape of a staple, I suppose would also be a good way to describe it. That would be kind of silly. And we'll then just place each one of the lights on that, lining up to the very top, making sure we don't have any excess lying around, and same on the other one. Boom, like so. So we now have headlights with turn signals. And our last step here is to put the turret mount on. Now some guys like, well, the instructions tell you to put it on this way because the engine grill's at the back. I see this as more being the opposite way around. I think with a vehicle that's so small it's supposed to become a battle tank all of a sudden, it makes more sense to have the turret here, because this big rear hatch, if you wanted to open, would give you access to the turret and whatnot and the mechanisms in there. And it's not uncommon to see military vehicles with an engine that's built into the center of the vehicle. But you know what? I think with the Baal there's going to be a huge overhang off the back, so we're just going to do it as per instructions. But there's just, you know, a little bit of something different really. I've done it with Razorbacks and stuff like that before. I do intend to do it with a Predator of my own at some point when I actually get a Predator for my Stone Templar, but there we go. So just build it as per instructions, turret mounted further forward, and just press that down into place like so. So with that step now complete, we'll move on. So our next step along, because we're the pyromaniacs that we are, we're going to build the heavy flamer sponsons. Now there's two of these to build. I've obviously built one off camera to save you guys falling asleep. So we'll bring all the parts in and we'll get these built. Okay, now we've even zoomed in for you guys because the sponson is relatively small. So these are the parts we're going to initially start with. This is basically creating the actual weapon mount. So the first thing we're going to do is we have an outside panel that is going to cover this huge gap here, and we need to glue into that. There's a rectangular slot in here that you can see hopefully, and we're going to glue into there, just a drop of glue in there. And then this panel will sit with the tiny vents towards the back, so everything should sit and just cover that gap quite well. So, like so. Then we're going to take the actual mount, and if you've built a Land Raider, you'll recognize that the little slot at the top of this is where the targeting lens will go. So that is to the top, and the bolted panel is also to the front, so you want to put it in that way, like so. Now the next thing we need to do is also place our fuel canisters, and they will press in this way, so you have the blankness of the front panel on the front of the canisters, and we have two slots on the back of the canisters which then take basically this little piece. So in essence you're basically building what looks like a miniature flamestorm cannon from the Land Raider Redeemer. It's just miniaturized a little bit. It's the same, more or less the same build process. So if I can get you a good look, you can see a little square notch. We need to add glue into there and add glue to the back of the fuel canisters. And with this little piece, the square slot will slide in first, and with any luck the whole assembly clips in together like so. So if I move that to the side, we'll then bring in the panels that we need to complete the sponson, and you'll see what this is in a minute. This is a very interesting idea. So the first thing we got to do is glue this panel into the top of our sponson. So we have to glue it in along here. So I'll just add that glue now, and take this piece and just press it in like so. Now here comes the very fun bit. We now have to take our weapon and rotate it over the body so it's the right way out. We then have to press this through the hole as per a regular Predator sponson, hopefully without damaging the part we've just added glue to. So push that in until it stops, like so. We now have to use this. Now what is this? This is a bottom support for the sponson. You guys and myself will all be aware regular bolters, regular sponsons on standard Predators can break a furious amount of times. Now the Baal has this nice little bracket that goes to the bottom and pins it exactly like a Land Raider sponson. So there's no lateral swing, no lateral bending motion on that one little part that's holding the whole thing together. This has been redesigned and it's a lot nicer, it's a lot more robust as well. So hopefully this stuff ain't going to fall apart in a hurry. So back to close, we need to add some glue just into the bottom here, into the center, because there's a little raised edge there you can see where this piece, this bracket piece, will slot into. Now this may be the tricky bit, because we now have to break and not really show you what's happening on close, because it's hard for me to see, and it would only be a nightmare for you guys to see as well if my hands are in the way the entire time. Well, there we are. And that is what that bottom bracket does. That just clasps the bottom of the weapon mount and just allows a lot more rigidity on the sponson. So you guys transporting your Blood Angels are going to be very happy. But there's no reason why the rest of you guys couldn't take a heavy bolter sponson from the Baal and build it in the same way and have more robust ones. Magnetize all this stuff. If you don't have Blood Angels, get rid of the iconography. So the last thing we need to do here is just add a drop of glue to the top and put our targeting lens onto the very top here. So there we have one of our sponsons. So with that now complete, we'll move on. Okay guys, so we're nearly there. What we have to do now is build our Flamestorm cannon. So we have the cannon itself, we have the fuel canisters which make up the bustle on the back of the turret, and we'll then basically construct our entire turret, bar the commander hatch and whatnot, and we should end up with something that looks like that. So we'll get stuck into that now. Okay, so keeping our camera nice and zoomed in, we're going to just build the Flamestorm itself. So we have two halves of this to put together first. So tip this over, and we'll just add glue along all the flat surfaces here and along the edges. Being careful not to use too much glue because it'll spill out all over the place. We then just need to press this other part, which is the bottom of the gun, into place, and quickly before the glue starts to attack any of the plastic, we wipe away some excess. So that's what we have excuse me, at the moment. We then have two igniter, two pilot lights. On the unboxing I thought it was just one, so begging your pardon. And these will glue in just so. So if I just push this first one in, hopefully I haven't put it in a very silly looking way. Yes, I have. So we'll try with our other sided one, which fits exactly right. So this is what we're looking for. So there's two of these to go on either side, which will make it look cool and symmetrical. So we just need to add glue to the other side. And then that piece will sit in with the slot going in towards the center to line itself up. Get rid of some excess there quickly. And there we have it. Now that looks pretty nice and chunky and mean. So we'll move that out of the way for a moment. We're now going to build excuse me, the fuel canisters for the actual back of the turret. So we have two pieces that need to glue together first. So we'll just run the glue around, trying to aim for the inside edge, because as the glue spreads we'll not have as much excess leaking out all over the place. Well, these will then just line up and press into place, and we'll just guarantee and just double check to make sure that everything is where we want it to be. And yep, that pretty much is. We now have two sort of cowling shields that need to go over our top area. So they need to go over this section, and they basically just clasp over yep, let me see now if I can remember. They basically just go over the top like so. They basically sit like that. So if I'll move that out of the way, well, actually no, before I do something silly, it's actually that way. There is apparently a precedence there, so we'll just add a run of glue to there along the middle and out like so. Make sure the part lines up nice and tidily and presses into place like so. So that's good. And our other side, like that. And that gets us basically quite a bulky looking fuel canister and something that looks actually kind of vulnerable really. But with that now done, we'll move on a bit further. Now the next pieces that we need, the top and the bottom of the turret and the ball joint, or sorry, the half barrel bottom part of the gun. Now that will sit into place on the base of the turret, which is this part, and just sits in loose like that. Now we then need to glue the bottom of the turret to the top, and we're going to try and take as thin a line of glue as possible around the part, not much more than that, and then this piece should come down and just sit on top nice and tidily like so. I'll just give it a quick look over again quickly before the plastic takes, or before the glue attacks the plastic. We wipe away some excess just to make sure, and that has also got a nice stiff movement, so you're not going to find your gun sort of falling over. And what else is nice is that it doesn't have a negative depression, so it's not going to be able to be drooping down all the time like a lot of other Predator, like the other Predator models would, which is very nice indeed. I'm quite happy with that. I'm then going to glue our fuel canisters onto the back of the bustle of the turret, and that will just glue in to this area, so we just need to add glue to there and across like so, and then these parts will push together. And we just hold it for a few moments and just make sure we haven't moved parts out of where they're supposed to be. And what I'm also going to do is add some more glue, especially around this top area here, just underneath that area, so that we've got a bit more glue on location, because this does seem to be a little bit loose at the minute. And I'm also going to add a line of glue at the very bottom of the bustle here, so just a little line just to make sure that what's contacting the model is definitely getting glue. Okay, there we are. I'm pretty happy with that. Does look kind of nice and bulky there. So the next thing we're going to do is add the actual flamestorm cannon, and we've also got the top cowling to add on to that as well. Now I'm wondering, for sake of guys that want to maybe do, you know, more than one variant, that would probably, yep, that just glues in nicely on its own. So if you guys want to do a bit of magnetization, you could probably get the assault cannons in there without maybe too much pain. As for the bustle, well, you've seen the way that attached, so that shouldn't be too hard to magnetize either, if you really want. But with the amount of parts left over, what you have left in the kit is the heavy bolter sponsons, well, the parts for the heavy bolter sponsons. And you've got the twin-linked assault cannon. Now all you're missing really is the cowling. You could probably make up a cowling from, say, a Razorback or something like that, and actually fit that to a regular Predator turret. But it's all down to matter of taste, really. So what we're going to do is just glue our cowling into place. So just along there. Not too much glue is required on that part. And while we have it pressed in, I'm going to add some glue just to the inside locations. We are going to be gluing the gun in, so I'm just going to apply the glue in there now. But yes, hopefully if you guys are really getting sort of adventurous, you could probably magnetize this kit pretty well. Unfortunately, the parts don't particularly slot in very well, as you're about to see, because we now need to lift the cowling off. So, go us. Now that is a reason against trying to magnetize it, as you're going to have to play with the cowlings. So, my apologies once again, but you're seeing the trial and error stage that hopefully this will save a few of you guys from going through. So there we are. We have our flamestorm cannon turret all in place, and I do gotta say it is considerably bulkier and considerably more purposeful looking than even the last cannon version of the standard Predator, and the autocannon version, which has the longer barrel. Still, it just looks, you know, nice and bulky, really. So anyway, our turret is now basically built. It's time to move on and detail this model up. So the next things we're going to be doing is we're going to be building our commander for the top of the turret. Once that guy's built, it's then just a matter of putting the hatches on, putting the iconography on, and putting our sponsons and turret into place. And our very last step, which, if I can show you, yeah, just adding our iconography and a couple of little detail bits and pieces here and there. Okay, we now have the bits for the commander of the tank. So the first thing we need to do is take the cupola, and we need to glue the set of legs for our commander into the base of the cupola. So on this base ring here, we'll just apply some glue, just to around the back half of it, away from the weapon mount, because we are putting a storm bolter on it. And if we lift it back up, we can line it all up properly. Sorry, this is a bit out of shot for you guys, but that's what we're aiming for there. I would say that's pretty good to me. Again, just make sure he's sitting in properly, that's fine. Now we will then just glue the front and the back of the torso together. This guy has some really nice detailing. He's even got a blood drop, or a few blood drops on his chest plate. So move that to the side, and then we'll glue the two halves of that torso together. Just place the top onto the bottom like so, and if I take it out of shot for a minute or two and just tidy him up like so. Now we then need to make the storm bolter. So I'll move this to the side and just take one half of our storm bolter, just add some glue to that, glue into the weapon mount as well, to the pintle mount, then bring the hatch in, and what we do is we'll slip, oh this is a bit hard for you to see, slip one half into the pintle, which obviously has the glue. We'll then apply the other half, lining it all up and pressing it into place like so. So we just need to hold that for a few moments until the glue starts to take. Probably just apply a little bit more to any of the join lines, just to guarantee that we have glue there. That seems fine to me. Okay then, so what we now need to do is bring the body in, bring the torso in. We now need to glue the arms to him, and we're doing that because we can then pose the arms easier onto the storm bolter, and then glue the torso down to the legs. So then we just apply the arms, push them on. This glue is really to only just add a bit of slowness, if you want, to the actual movement of the arms. We then need to add glue to the top of the legs, and then we have to push the whole thing together, which is incredibly hard for you guys to see. I apologize for that. Okay, so we more or less have the arms in place. We now need to glue, or add a drop of glue to the little control panel that he has, or little control sticks that he has for the storm bolter. And this is unfortunately well out of shot here because I'm having to hold the torso, the arms and the storm bolter with pretty much 5 fingers, so pretty much a hand's worth of fingers holding all the parts in place until the glue actually takes. Once the glue takes, hopefully we shouldn't have a problem after that. Okay, so that is basically what we are ending up with. So the commander looks quite purposeful with the storm bolter there. He's holding it relatively nice and level. We then are going to put our shoulder guards on. So obviously one on each arm. So just a blob of glue on each shoulder. I'm going to take this nice Blood Angel one and put it to the left shoulder because it's shown on the box like that, and we've also been keeping that as a theme for our house army. That the company markings go on the right shoulder, which is probably correct towards the fluff anyway. So that should be alright. We'll then just apply the head. Just glue him in like so. And I'm probably going to have him looking off to the side and have his head looking in the direction of the actual periscope, the main periscope, which I'm going to actually make as pointing to the front of the vehicle. So this is actually all going to be pointing off the turret to the side a little bit, while the commander and the main periscope are looking directly off the front of the turret. No particular reason why, it just, I think, makes it look a little more dynamic. Now the last things we need to do here are two hatch covers. So we've got one on each side, so a little bit of glue on each side. Not too much, because if we use too much, the hatches won't take properly and then they'll bend and they'll not sit, and it'll just be a whole mess and a whole annoyance. So we'll press this one in first. That should be in far enough. And same on the other side. It's rather hard building some of these smaller pieces while simultaneously trying to show you what I'm doing, so I just have to lift this last one out a shot so I can hold it a bit more firmly. And we also need to try and level the hatches up so they don't look wonky. So they're more or less sitting in the same position on each side. So that is more or less what we've ended up with for that. Now we'll move this out of the way and then we'll start adding everything we have to the hull. So we'll just bring our hull back in, and now what we're going to do is start adding all our bits and pieces. So we'll bring our two sponsons in. We'll then add those to the model now as well. So if we take this one first and move the hull out of the way, what we now need to do is just add glue to this sort of area here, this outermost, well, second outermost ridge, because the outer one is the very outer one and has no contact with the model. So along there, and along the top, then bring this in, and that will just sit in just so. And hopefully with any luck I'll actually be able to rotate the sponson just slightly just to keep it out of the way. Like so. So we have our first sponson on. We'll then rotate round and do the same on the other side. So just run the glue around that same edge again. Like so. Then bring our hull back in and press that into place in the same location. Just hold that firm for a few moments and just maybe press in at the sides a little bit more. And that's the sponsons now in. We're then going to take the turret and we're going to bring our commander in. So the commander is now going to be glued into the turret in the way that I'd pretty much described, hopefully. So if I dry fit him, yeah, basically like that. I quite like this looking off, you know, at something else. Maybe if I try and bend that hatch up a little bit, I can get round a bit more into the proper looking forward position that I was after. Bingo. So that's what we've got. Now we're just going to glue around this circular shape here around the turret, because there is certain glue points, but I'd rather make sure I hit them all instead of missing them. No particular reason why, it's just my mindset basically. And then setting this back down into the position that I want so that he's looking forward while the storm bolter is pointing off to the side. Makes it look like he's brought the hatch round a bit more to have better vision. Now we'll just set the turret on, and you can see the bulk. The turret overall is nearly, well, is pretty much 7/8 the length of the vehicle, which is always a good statistic to work on with vehicles like this. So move that to the side for now. We have a piece of iconography that we're going to glue onto the front glasses plate, and I chose this sort of sunburst with the Blood Angel's winged blood drop in the middle of it. So we're just going to apply some glue to the back of that. Just one single blob, because as we press that down that'll spread out and give great contact with the model. And we need to turn it away from the camera so that I can actually line it up by eye. And when it's lined up, press it in the middle to spread the glue out. Like so. And there we have our piece of Blood Angel iconography. Now we have two last pieces to put on. These are really more optional bits. These look like modified air vents or something like that, and they would sort of face forward, but I don't like that. They're going to face back on this one to make it look like extra exhausts for the overcharged engines that they have. So these actually go onto the rear plate in this location. So I need to add some glue just here and around there, just over that whole vent. And I'm going to take one of these pieces and that will sit in like so. We can just make sure it's sitting down tight. Again, watch for excess glue, seriously, because it can make a complete mess of the model. So that's what we're looking at, a vent sort of pointing backwards, because I don't think air scoops as such really look good on a tank. It makes it look a bit like an easy target to hit. So ideally, if I'd thought about this a bit more, I would have shaved off the two little rivets that are in this location, but the glue should manage them and bring them down a little bit, even though these are raised up a tiny touch. So there's our second one in place, and with the turret back on, we have ourselves a flamestorm cannon toting Baal Predator for our Blood Angel army. Looking very nice and intimidating. A great kit to put together. Very nice and easy. So guys, that completes the build of the Baal. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, put your comments below. If you did enjoy it, put your comments below. We'd love to hear the feedback. What do you think of the model? I quite like it. I think it's probably one of the most purposeful looking versions of the Predator I've ever seen. Who knows? I think it would be useful because, you know, Predators generally sit back. I know they don't have the best armor in the world, but you know, for what's more or less 140 points, you're going to charge forward, flame some stuff. You're going to blow up eventually, I'm sure, but that doesn't matter. So guys, put your comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.